So, who is the best Christian apologist anyhow? Or, I guess from our perspective, who is the least worst? Frank Turek seems to think that he knows. He put up a list of the top 20 on his website, but I think we can get away with only looking at the top 10, don't you? Therefore, let's just go take a look and see if any of them stand up to intellectual muster. But I wouldn't be holding my breath. I mean, this is Frank Turek we're talking about here. I know his list is the top 20 apologists, but if you can't prove your point in the top 10, then you really don't have a point, do you? I get a fair bit of criticism from the religious that I'm only going after the low-hanging fruit around here, but I go after absolutely anyone. Give me someone better to go after. Go ahead. I've been asking for years, and the religious can come up with no likely candidates. So, I decided to go on a mission to see who the Christians thought were the best apologists on their side. This list comes from Frank Turek. I do have others. I don't think any of the recommendations are going to be any good, but hey, let's see. They deserve to be given a shot. Number 1, Norm Geisler. Geisler died in 2019, but there's an official video channel up on YouTube run by his son. Now, I've never done a Geisler video, although I do know a lot about him. The problem with this channel is that all of his content is very, very, very long, far too long to take a look at, and all of the reasonably short and concise content, well, it isn't actually his. All of his content seems to be sermons and talks and the like, and that doesn't translate very well into a video response. However, I'm not remotely impressed by pretty much anything that he does, and I never really was. Geisler was around back when I was a Christian, and I've probably listened to some of the things he did back in the day. But today? Yeah, not a chance. Like so many of these theologians, he's big into philosophy, and that colored how he thought and responded to questions about Christianity. Like all apologists in his camp, he's not remotely interested in facts or truth, only in rationalizing his way back to his pre-existing faith. And that's not remotely impressive. Number 2, William Lane Craig. Now, we all know Craig. I've done a fair number of his videos, and he never really performs very well, does he? People like to hold him up as their expert, but he's really not that good at much of anything. Again, like Geisler, he's a philosopher who thinks that philosophy can tell us anything about reality. And he's just wrong. But he's also been an elitist, where he refuses to talk to people who don't have PhDs in relevant fields. I think I did a video on him explaining why a while back, but yeah, that was pretty dumb too. It really comes off as pretty petty if you think about it. Mostly, he expects people to allow him his faith, and then he starts from that perspective. Well, I'm not willing to do that. I start from prove that your faith is true, and no apologist has ever managed to do that. Sorry, Christians, if this is the best that you can do, then you've lost before you even begin. Number 3, Ravizacharias. Now, Ravizacharias died this year, and I actually have a couple of his videos in my queue, but I haven't done them because I don't want to look like I'm kicking the dead when they're down. Someday, yeah, maybe I'll get around to it, but Ravizacharias wasn't anyone to be proud of. He's been soundly criticized for exaggerating his professional credentials. Like it or not, he pushed philosophy over science and faith over facts, because honestly, what else can he do? And that's really my concern with just about all of these apologists. They're all doing the exact same thing, and that thing doesn't stand up to any amount of rational scrutiny. That's really the problem with all of this. It's just the same old shit in a different suit. As soon as you reject blind faith as a legitimate means of evaluating the real world, Christian apologetics vanishes into a sea of irrationality. So that's 3 down, and every single one of them is weak. Kinda sad. Next. Number 4. John Lennox. Now, I've done John Lennox before, and like the rest, it's all rhetoric and no reality. I don't think that Lennox has a channel on YouTube, but, at least he's not dead, so that's something, I guess. Most of the clips, as with Geisler, are parts of sermons and talks and debates, and are therefore not really amenable to taking on in a response video format. I don't want it to look like I'm taking anything that they're saying out of context, and thus I always try to provide the context as they present it. Lennox isn't that impressive. Lennox is well known for trying to equate faith and science while playing word salad with his definition of faith so that it means whatever happens to be convenient at the moment. Science has faith, even though it really doesn't, and that makes religious faith just as valid. He's another one of those theologians who makes a lot of hand-waving claims about the historical reliability of Jesus, but the second anyone calls him on it, he can't actually prove that Jesus ever existed. It's very dishonest when you think about it, but this is religious apologetics. He likes to push the narrative that because early scientists like Galileo, Kepler, and Newton were religious, therefore science owes everything that it has discovered to Christianity. And of course, we can point to non-religious scientists, both back in the day and today, and quite a few of them were very critical of Christianity in particular, but yeah, he doesn't bring any of that up, does he? Because, he doesn't care. Lennox really is a joke. Number 5. Greg Kugel. Yeah, we all know Greg and his STR idiots, and I've done him many times on the channel. Why? Because, like Frank Turek himself, he's the gift that keeps on giving. If this is on Frank's top 10, I don't know what to tell you. Greg is a mess. It's all faith over facts, the Bible is right because he wants the Bible to be right nonsense. I really don't know how much I can say about Greg that all of the videos of his stupidity haven't already said. This is not someone worth listening to, and like the rest, he has absolutely no evidence to support his case. It's all rhetoric and faith, not evidence and rational evaluation. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you have faith in. I care what you can prove. And we all know that none of these people can prove a damn thing. It's no wonder Frank idolizes them, because they're all just as dumb as he is. Number 6. J. Warner Wallace. Now, I've also done Wallace a couple of times, and he's nothing to write home about. His shtick is that he wants to treat Christianity like a murder investigation. But that's not how reality works. We're not interested in whether or not you can con a jury into making a decision on emotional grounds. And that's really all that he does, if you notice. We only care if you can demonstrate that your claims are objectively and factually correct. They're just playing musical standards. Every single one of them really are, by trying to appeal to one form of inquiry when addressing something entirely different. It's why science doesn't use a courtroom setting. Scientists don't get up and dance a jig trying to convince a bunch of illiterate people who couldn't even get out of jury duty that their side is closer to the truth. That's not how legitimate inquiry works, yet with Wallace, that's what he tries to do. And that's kind of sad, isn't it? Number 7. Paul Copeland. Here's another one that I haven't done, although I'm certainly well versed in his work. Copeland again follows the philosophical route because what the hell else is he going to do, right? He's known for coming up with the divine command theory, and he's written pretty extensively trying to excuse God for being a moral monster. But yeah, he's really not that bright if you think about it. Let's go back to divine command theory. He asserts that morality can be determined by whether or not God commanded the actions. In other words, anything God says to do is automatically morally correct by definition. If God commands people to run around killing the infidels, well, that's fine and dandy because, God. But that's dumb. It really is. But hey, that's the kind of thought processes that we see from these people. So long as God says to do it, no matter how heinous it is, hey, you're golden. Except, how do you know what God commands? How do you know that God is real in the first place? Where's your evidence? Oh, right, you have none. You only have faith. And of course, this only works for Christians. I mean, why can't Muslim fanatics say, well, Allah wants us to smite the infidels, so get the hell out of our ways, we've got some suicide vests to put on. Or Aleph, formerly the Aum Shinrikyo cult, they believe that the world is going to be destroyed, so, get the hell out of their way while they unleash sarin gas in the subways. But hey, the Christians don't see it that way, do they? Because they're right and everybody else is wrong. Yeah, doesn't work that way. Number 8, Ed Fesser. Now, I've done him too, at least in passing, and he's still not that impressive. He's written a bunch of books, none of which stand up to any scrutiny whatsoever. That's kind of a universal warning sign among the religious, isn't it? All faith and feelings, no facts and evidence. It's not surprising that Frank would put him on the list because they're both doing the exact same thing. It's a giant incestuous anti-intellectual gangbang. A whole bunch of claims made for emotional reasons, not backed up by anything, and completely debunked the second you look at it intelligently. Because these things don't stand up at all. It's one of the reasons I reject the idea of a worldview over just acknowledging the truth. Worldviews impose a bunch of unsupported and indemonstrable claims on the believer and serve as a filter through which all thoughts must pass. And that's absolutely not necessary. The facts are the facts, and the better that we can understand the facts, the better that we can comprehend reality. Ed Fesser's work simply doesn't meet the standard of proof. Yet another pass. Number 9, Lee Strobel. Really digging into the bottom of the barrel here, huh, Frank? Because Lee Strobel, who wrote The Case for Christ and lots of other books, none of them actually examine the claims of Christianity from any other perspective but blind faith. Lee doesn't seem to have a presence on YouTube, but the videos put up here by other channels, almost entirely churches, are parts of talks and sermons, and as I've said, they just don't qualify for the response video format. But yeah, he's got nothing. None of them do. Absolutely none of them have anything intelligent to say, nor anything demonstrable to back it up with. How are any of these people supposed to convince the non-religious that Christianity is true? They're not. They don't try and they don't care because the entire point of apologetics is to comfort the people who already believe it by making believe that they've got a point. This is really just a list of cult leaders pushing the teachings of the cult on people who already buy into the teachings of the cult. It's pretty sad that nobody really recognizes this, isn't it? And finally, number 10, Josh McDowell. Josh McDowell is the biggest joke on the list. He's the one who wrote such laughable books as Evidence That Demands a Verdict and A Ready Defense, and these things have been taken apart online and completely debunked, yet the religious don't seem to care, do they? Josh does seem to have a YouTube presence, and the only reason I haven't done any of his videos is because I thought even the Christians thought he was a laughingstock, but no, apparently not. I might have to go and do some of those. That just goes to show how much of a laughingstock Christianity itself actually is, doesn't it? Honestly, did you see anyone in this list that you think would be worth responding to? The religious keep saying, well, don't go for the low-hanging fruit, find the experts. Except I can't find anything but low-hanging fruit. And when I ask them to point out who these so-called experts are, they run away. Because there are no experts, at least not any experts that those not already indoctrinated into the faith who believe blindly would find worthwhile. It's why I cover so many apologists around here. Anyone who has a message and sounds remotely coherent, and let's be honest, a lot of them can barely manage that, I'll take a look at. And I've never yet found a single one that I've had to step back and say, hey, they actually have a point. Because none of them actually have a point. It's all based on faith, and faith is not remotely impressive for anything. If you have to rely on faith, then give up. You've already lost. If you can only make arguments based on philosophy, then just stop. You've failed. If you can't use the right tool for the right job, then don't do the job. You'll only mess it up no matter how many mindless sycophants you have behind you. Reality is not based on popularity. Reality is not based on feelings. Reality is what is actually so in the real world that we all collectively share. So all of the appeals to emotion and wishful thinking, none of that's going to impress anyone with two brain cells to rub together. If that's all you've got, give up. You've lost already. Now, will somebody please find me someone better than this lot? Because I've already taken a look, and I'm not remotely impressed. And you shouldn't be either.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom.